Thank you, Jamie, and thank you one and all being with us. As you know, this is our regular time for the SHOPO Hour. It is an opportunity for you to speak with, Q&A with the leadership of SHOPO, our police statewide union, and with Brother Mark Criccio, retired major out of primarily Waikiki District, but has served all throughout our island. Bobby has some time off. Steve Keogh, Vice President of SHOPO. Good morning, brother.
Good morning, Rick. Always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners. Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Steve. Morning, Rick. Happy Monday.
I'm ready for
Weren't
this.
we just here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
About 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I still have your coffee, but the milk curdled a little bit. Let's jump right on in, because we were on the air this past Thursday. Later in the day, I understand the decision by the state's attorney general came down. You and Bobby were very transparent from the get-go, even to the point of providing audio of a part of a board meeting that, without a doubt, that this was an orchestrated, manipulative event. Now, resolution, yes? To what point, and what is your reaction to that decision?
Sure, Rick. So, obviously, Bobby and I are very pleased that the Attorney General made a decision to not move forward with any type of prosecution. We have maintained that we didn't do anything criminal in our decisions as board leaders, as board leadership. And we're relieved. As you can appreciate, as you can appreciate, you know, when you have something like that kind of looming over your head, we're glad that it's behind us now. Kind of like that's over with, on to the next. And the reason why, Rick, we come on the show and we share these kind of things with you is just because the SHOPO brand right now, you know, is kind of being dragged through the mud. So the reason why we want to be transparent with the community and share what's going on is just to keep everybody informed, because when this whole civil lawsuit came out, there was some serious allegations made that really directly attacked the credibility of the new board. And that's why we want to make sure that when we can kind of set the record straight and keep everybody informed as to what's going on in the process, we choose to do that. So we're relieved. We're happy. We think the Attorney General obviously made the right decision and saw that there was no criminal elements there. And that gets put to rest.
Remind us, though, because you mentioned, you're right, the allegations were serious with implications. And can you just review those for us now and then share what is the next step?
Sure. So when we got elected as a board back in January, we had discovered some financial improprieties that we needed to address. The duly elected vice president at the time was found to have made some decisions that were not applicable with SHOPO's bylaws and regulations. We investigated. We brought what we found to light. We were hoping for participation and answers from Mr. Hullums, the individual that we're speaking about. There were others, but the others were not sitting board members. When the board did not get participation from Mr. Hullums, we made a decision to remove him. It was not based on anything other than the fact that there were improprieties that were discovered, and the improprieties were not accounted for. There was no explanation.
No resolution.
Correct.
Okay.
He chose not to participate in a due process hearing. Not trying to oversimplify it, but that's really where we're at with this. Because of our action as a board to unanimously remove him as the sitting vice president, a couple months down the road, there was civil charges, a lawsuit brought against all members of the board that were involved in that decision. From that civil lawsuit, which we discussed on the radio, serious allegations were made in the lawsuit. I was very passionate about saying how outrageous and outlandish they were. And from the civil lawsuit, HPD, our employer, gets involved. Okay? The Professional Standards Office, some old timers know it as Internal Affairs, received a copy of this document. We don't know who within the agency, but that document was reviewed. And as it was reviewed, there was somebody thought that there was criminality there and listed Bobby and I as possible suspects in an extortion third case. Mr. Hullams was used as a witness. We don't know what was done as far as HPD's investigation. That's not our purview. It was completed. We were notified that we were the subject of an investigation. So this was back middle of June. And we were notified as officers that work for the department, and we were subsequently placed on restricted duty, meaning our police powers are removed. We're still commissioned officers, but as far as our job responsibilities and supervising other officers, that was all taken away. And we were assigned basically to an administrative position. That's after the notification happened. And this was the middle of June, so we're still right now on restricted duty. HPD Professional Standards Office created some type of packet, right? And gave it to the Attorney General's office for their review to see if there should be any criminal prosecution from what was stated on the civil lawsuit side. Now,
it's interesting. How did criminality follow a civil?
Well, see, anybody that has a few $100 in a typewriter can do a civil lawsuit. Mm-hmm. Let's just be real clear, okay? Mm-hmm. I don't have the purview, neither does Bobby, to who inside the agency or what decided to look at this, and then who within the department, within the Professional Standards Office, deduced that there was a level of criminality here that needed a outside law enforcement agency to review it. We're not going to know that stuff. We're not going to know that stuff.
Okay.
Even when the Attorney General's office, the way that it worked is we were notified by PSO via our department email that the AG's office had declined the case. That's what they call it. And admittedly, Rick, when the AG office declines a case, there's a lot of note-taking that goes on their end that we're not going to be privy to. We had asked to possibly see what's called a conferral sheet, which is usually the notes that are between the investigators and whatnot, and kind of why they decided to not do that. But that's just not something we're going to get an opportunity to look at. At the end of the day, we're very happy with the decision. We feel that obviously it was the right decision. But as far as what the AG investigators were thinking and what professional standards shared with them and this kind of thing, that's just not something that Bobby and I are going to have an opportunity to look at.
So this packet that was transmitted, does that mean that it's now resolved in regard to the AG? There's no secondary with criminal allegations or anything like that? No, the Hawaii State Attorney General, they are the top. They're the agency. They made that decision, and that's final.
Okay. So the criminal element, the criminal cloud accusations, however we want to call it, those are over with. They're done, buried, put to rest.
Okay.
On to the next.
So is it Chief Joe Logan that can reinstate your status?
Sure. So, Rick, in theory, the answer to that is yes. He's the chief of police. Mm-hmm. He has that purview. On the paperwork that Bobby and I were served with when we were put on restricted duty, it has the chief's signature. Clearly, the chief has an executive staff, and he has a team of individuals working with him. It's going to be up to them to decide how long or how much longer Bobby and I need to be on restricted duty. Mm-hmm. Now, I can share this with you from the union standpoint. As an officer, we can be placed on restricted duty for up to 2 years by the administration, and it's the administration's purview that if there is criminal allegations, that always gets taken care of first. But administratively, if there's an administrative investigation taking place, it is within the administration's right to put an officer on restricted duty during the administrative investigation. Now, with that being said, given the nature of this specific situation, right, that it was a civil lawsuit, criminal stuff has been put on the side. Maybe some would say a little bit different, right? Usually officers are placed on restricted duty, Rick, and I'll just share this with your listeners. Are they a danger to the community? Was the offense related to drugs or alcohol? Was it involving violence? Basically, the number one thing that the administration looks at is this officer that works for us, is he a danger to the community? Can he still do his job even though we're doing this administrative investigation? So that's a big question. I would say, respectfully, what Bobby and I are dealing with on the civils, now that the criminal side is gone, what Bobby and I are dealing with on the civil side certainly doesn't pose a risk to the public. So, of course, mine and Bobby's position would be, hey, yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready to go back and serve the community and do what we do. However, we have several supervisors in the chain of command, and ultimately, Rick, it's going to be their call as to how long that happens. We've been on restricted duty now for about 3.5 months, but like I said, the administration it's their purview during that time to keep officers on restricted duty until the administration investigation is wrapped up.
Thank you for the explanation. And we appreciate very much from Steve, Brother Mark in studio as well. We'll take a very short break. We're already at 7:21 in the morning. Goodness gracious. More topicality coming your way. Calls if you would like. 521-8383. We'll be back.
KHVH.
Welcome back, everybody. The SHOPO Hour continues, and Bobby has the morning off. Steve Keogh in with us, Vice President of SHOPO, and Mark Criccio, retired major with HPD, in studio today. Thanking Steve for walking us through much, much more than the simple headline that we received. I want to go over to Mark Criccio. Mark, your thoughts?
So a quick answer to your question was, how do they come up with criminal liabilities from a civil lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
Layman's terms, let's say a TRO, right? Someone gets to serve the TRO. So what they'll do is they'll review the document, and then maybe a reason for the TRO is in there saying that person was intimidated, or that person was hit, or there was some type of abuse before, right? So, yeah, there's no criminality case made, but within that TRO it says that they were hit before. So there's a criminal element. So they'll look at that document. If there's any type of criminal elements that could have happened, then they'll bring that to light. And that's probably, I don't know what they reviewed in this document, but I guess they felt that. So that's how it comes out. So,
Okay.
Again, with the ROPA situation, that's one of the things that rank and file is just livid with the fourth floor. It just takes so long. Like in my personal opinion with this case, okay, criminal elements done. Attorney General said no criminal liability. Why not put these guys back on the road? It's a sergeant and lieutenant. You're short people, right? They're supervisors. Put them back on the road, right? That's my personal opinion, right? So they've been ROPA for over 3 months, right? Yeah, is that the easy play? Yeah, leave them on ROPA until the admin investigation is done. Yeah, it's an easy play, but is it the right thing to do? Come on, look at it. Are these guys a threat to the community? I don't think so. So,
And Rick, I just want to say this. I think it's important to say to the listeners in the community, Bobby and I are not asking for any kind of special treatment because we're SHOPO leadership. That's not what it's about. In fact, the administration has treated us exactly like they would anybody else. We're just asking that, the case moves forward, and, it's going to move forward, and, Chief Joe will get together with his team, and, that decision we made. It's not something that Bobby and I can control. It's not something that we're going to try to get a lot of answers on. We just, we're here. We kind of have an attitude that when the department's ready, they're going to share with us what's going on. It's definitely in their hands now. But again, Rick, what a relief that the criminal case is done. You never like that kind of stuff hanging over your head, because at the end of the day, it's a reflection. Again, it's not about the president, and it's not about Steve and Bobby as individuals. It's about our positions within the union and the amazing SHOPO brand and what it represents. And that's why I'm so happy that this criminal stuff is done, because SHOPO as an organization, again, is just
It's been a saga, and it still continues.
Correct.
That's why I'm grateful that you and Bobby and Mark appear, because I would imagine 92% of the listeners, we had no idea of what the intricacies were. We see a headline, and my last thing, oftentimes the perception is a reality, so if a legal action takes place, there's an assumption of guilt. That's just how it happens with media and digesting. When you take the time and we can learn more about what the reality is, that helps greatly. And you're talking to the most Akamai listeners anyway, so I'm sure there's an appreciation, without a doubt. We're at 7:27. I want to ask this real quick, and then we have to take the break. Mark's absolutely right. Shortage. Dealing with. We lament it. I hear it. 300 plus, if not more. And here we have 2 officers that could be returned to duty. How are we today? We're heading into the latter part of the year. Are we going to start 2023 short on staff, short on team, still scrambling to try and fill positions?
I think it's a fair question, Rick. Maybe something that could be addressed with Chief Joe when he comes on the program. SHOPO has always taken the position that we feel that patrol beats should be filled and funded. The patrol beats are funded, so we feel that those beats should be filled. And that should be made a priority. So our position is, let's make sure the community has the beats filled so we can service the community. We feel that while the agency is short, there's no doubt about that, Rick. We're several hundred officers down, and several talented officers, Rick, just retired. Just in the last few days, there was
that was my follow-up question.
Oh, was it? Okay. So,
no, I'm just saying.
Sure,
that's because there's this incredible dynamic.
So you had fantastic lieutenants and sergeants. You had people that have been in the department 30 plus years that decided that, hey, okay, it's my time. And when you have those talented individuals with so many years of experience, and Rick,
but how do we retain then, bro? How do we retain and how do we recruit? It just seems it's frustrating because you were successful in negotiating a substantive contract, which may not be perfect, but it's above and beyond what we had previously. And the siren call is out.
Yeah.
Siren call is out to be an officer for the Honolulu Police Department. I know all the BS of I know it plays a role in it. But my goodness, crime is so top of mind with everybody. If HPD is going to get the attention and the spotlight, then we've got to be at 110%. And as just a citizen, we're all going, what's up? Mark, why? What do we do?
Everybody talks about retention, but, think about it. 25, 30 years in this job, it's going to be hard to retain somebody. It's a grind. You do 25. Look, I did 30, 31 and a half years. It's like I wanted to retire 3-4 years ago. It's just it has nothing to do with the department. I love the department, but it's just, hey, there's a point where you got to live your life too. I mean, you got to enjoy life. It's time to retire. It's a grind. So,
but you have retirements that are before 20, 30 years of service, right?
Correct, Rick. If you were an officer prior to 2012, you could retire with 25 years of service on the job or 55 years of age. Okay? If you came in after 2012, you're going to need to work 30 years or be 60 years of age. So whatever comes first.
Okay.
And when it comes to retention, Mark's correct. Some people have grinded it out and they're just ready. But what would be the ideal situation is that rather than somebody leave right at that 25-year mark, right? Could they stay an extra 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And that's where SHOPO can get involved and try to do some unique things like the drop program. Again, though, it's not just a union issue. It's going to be a collaborative effort with city leadership, the city council, police administrators. And again, it's not just a money play, right? It's a morale. How's the morale, the money, the benefits? Does it work for the officer and that officer's family? But ideally, Rick, rather than going right, how about this? When you could go out the door, we're saying, hey, could you stay a little bit longer? Could you give us a few more years of experience to mentor those newer officers, not just to fill the roll call seats, but to mentor the new officers coming in, because that's priceless.
Mark?
Yeah, the mentorship is a lot. So I'm going to tell you, once a month, a bunch of retirees get together, have a breakfast out in YPO. And I attended it a few months ago. Actually, there's one this Friday or Thursday. I can't remember.
Mm.
I don't know what day it is anymore. But anyway, when I was over there, though, I just look around the room. I'm like, look at all this talent and all this knowledge that just once you retire, poof, gone. There's got to be a way of channeling that into these new recruits or, into the department, right?
Well, how about new recruits?
That's hard because, if you noticed, these classes coming out are way smaller. And, there's a theory behind it, but I don't know if that's going to work. The theory is if it's a smaller class, you're going to have less attrition. But, someone explained this to me about the department as far as retention and recruiting and, holding people. Think of a bathtub with a drain. It's constantly draining. The department's constantly draining. We're probably between people leaving, between retirements and quitting, it's like maybe 100 a year, give or take, right? It's constant.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to recruit way more than, or graduate way more than that, because it's not doing any good to keep the same amount of people coming in as leaving. You need more, right? And that's what's happening. It's just, they're constantly leaving. And that it's just between attrition and retirement.
It's already 7:33. We are flying by with the SHOPO Hour featuring Bobby Cavaco, who has the day off, Vice President Stephen Keel, and retired Major, he is Mark Criccio. We're going to return with more. If you have any questions, give us a call. If not, we have plenty of topicality to go forward with, and we'll do it in a moment. Welcome back. It is the SHOPO Hour featuring Vice President of SHOPO, Steve Keogh, and Brother Mark Criccio, retired Major of HPD. Bobby, he has the day off, and we're getting caught up together on great news information and, dare I say, some great perspective to help us understand what the reality is behind surface. I have a couple of things jotted down. One has to do with the Obrega story. I know we chatted briefly on Thursday. There has not been, to my knowledge, any movement at all in the calling of a session. And the reports are coming out more that defense attorneys are succeeding. You have those with felonies that are back out. And I'm not sure, and this is just a question, what the heck is it going to take? I'm just flummoxed that we're sitting in this situation, Brother Mark.
Well, let's start with the Hawaii Supreme Court ruling, right? So normally I'm really critical of these guys and gals, if there's gals on there, but I see where they're coming from with this, right? This guy's defending himself, right? And they go to grand jury. Grand jury says no. Now the prosecutor goes different direction because they didn't get what they wanted. They did the same thing with those three officers. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, with the Supreme Court got pissed off. The prosecutor's like, hey, what do you're not happy with the decision, so you're going to go another route, So I kind of agree with the Supreme Court on this one.
Well, the court, in my opinion, the court was right.
Yeah.
Because they took, and we cited the statutes of the Constitution that constitutionally mandates. And so for years, criminal complaints have been accepted.
Yep.
In this one particular story, I guess the defense attorney for Obrega, he went, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But Okay, so then brings us to the legislature. Fix the damn thing. Again, they are not working for you. Once they get your vote, they're on their own little agenda in that square building. So, election time coming up, folks.
But I just, it
Yeah.
chafes me.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, seeking your vote, oh, crime, we need to do all that we can, and we need to do this. Here you have it right in front of you, right in front.
Yep.
And tick-tock goes the clock. And more defendants, more convicted felons are going to be released. I just, it's very frustrating. Election day, November 8th.
Yes.
That's right.
But I hope the people realize it, you know.
And if your listeners are looking for a little bit of guidance, SHOPO has endorsed different candidates that are running. Clearly, these candidates have taken a position that they, support law and order. They back the men and women that wear the uniform. So let that maybe be a guide for them, if I could share that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that very much. Tomorrow, Chief Joe Logan's going to have a public hearing in regard to restrictions proposed in regard to 2A. I'd like to get both of your takes. First of all, just your reaction to the Supreme Court decision, which has now opened the door for carry, conceal in various ways. That decision having citizens, perhaps with firearms, in the general public. Secondarily, there has been a bill submitted by Mayor Rick Blangiardi to the City Council with a list of restrictions. In other words, where you cannot carry, which includes schools, government buildings, and more. Can I get your take on this entire story?
Well, I don't have an issue with people carrying. I really don't. And let's face it, it's a Supreme Court ruling. So it's not a state's right now. This is a country now, right? Supreme Court ruling. So, like I said, I don't mind you guys carrying, but be proficient at it. And I think Chief Joe went over that.
Yeah.
He went over that saying, hey, you're going to carry, know your responsibilities, know what could happen if you use that thing, get ready for the civil liabilities and all that. And that's fine. But for Mayor Rick to come out and want to restrict certain areas, you better be careful. This is a Supreme Court decision. Like I said, it's not a state's rights anymore, right? So people are going to have a right to carry. So get ready for some lawsuits.
I think they're already being formulated as we speak. On the beat, though, how do you counsel your officers when this becomes policy and people are entitled to carry and conceal? What's the message to your officers?
I think that's where actually police administration, Chief Joe and his team, and the training cadre are going to have to put together something for officers at annual recall training or whatnot, as far as what do officers need to do, for example, on a traffic stop, when they go to a case. That's going to be something, obviously, that officers that work patrol are going to have to deal with. Personally, I'm totally good with this. Steve Keogh is good with it. You want to do concealed carry? I'm good with it. Okay. As a police officer, we want to keep everybody safe. So my big thing is training and proficiency with the firearm. I feel, right, that you should take a firearms course. That course needs to have a qualification component with some level of stress put on it. Because if people want to carry a firearm for their own personal safety, that's their right. But they're going to be using it in times of stress. So I just think as a community, we need to put sensible type of licensing behind that, right? And then HPD, we need a little bit of time. And I listened to Chief Joe's show, and I know your listeners have called in, and I think they've been patient with Chief Joe and his administration. HPD is going to need to have to do a lot of things, and all the other county police chiefs, getting their people trained. How are we going to process this? How are we going to do that? There's a lot of moving parts. You can't just say, okay, everyone gets concealed carry and here we go. The other thing, this is as a police officer, okay? People have that right. It's a Second Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights, right? So it's big. If someone is having mental health crisis, if somebody gets caught up in any kind of domestic violence, somebody becomes a felon. They commit a crime, they're convicted. We need as a community to have ways that the judiciary would give permission to have those firearms taken back. I think that's important to address, right? That if somebody develops a mental illness, commits, gets convicted of a felony, you have domestic violence cases, and in DV cases, we can seize the firearms at the scene if it's safe, right? If it's need be, and any ammunition. But I think as a community, we also need to address that if an individual goes sideways, so to speak, that we can, for everybody's protection, remove that. To Mark's point, Mayor Rick is the leader of the city. He's elected. He can make choices as mayor. However, you don't want to put so many restrictions on it that the optic is like, well, yeah, we can do concealed carry, but you can't, quote unquote, you can't bring it anywhere. And if that's the spirit that this is being done, then I think that should be revisited, right? And businesses, have the right to decide. My thing is, let people decide. Do you need that much government stepping in? That's something to think about, right? Business owners could say, "Hey, we don't want you to have a firearm in our establishment." Now how you're going to enforce that? See, this is the thing too.
See, the language of it is that it's all you cannot bring them to any unless the business displays that yes, firearms are accepted. It's kind of like this mask business, this whole thing.
Well,
so that's
the other thing is if you want to put certain restrictions on this, the follow-up question you need to ask yourself is, how do you enforce it? It's concealed carry. So you're not visibly seeing it anyway. So what, is someone on the honor system? And then if that's the case, what's the punishment if you do it? Are we talking about making it a criminal offense? And then what? You're going to call up the county police departments? I'm just asking myself as a street cop, okay, you want to put these restrictions in place. This is what the community wants, or this is the direction we go. How do you enforce it for those that don't want to do it? And how do you even identify it? If I want to come in and buy a sandwich from a sandwich shop, and let's say the sandwich shop says, you can't carry your firearm in here. Well, what am I going to do? Go in, order the sandwich, and then how can they determine it's done? So I'm just thinking, and again, Mayor Rick, he's the mayor. Well,
it's 7:49, and we're just getting started. Tomorrow is the public hearing. It is at HPD Main, and Chief Joe will be there, and of course the whole entire cadre as well. We're going to take a short break because it is the SHOPO hour already. It's 7:50 in the morning here on News Radio 830 KHV. Deep thanks, abiding thanks to both Brother Steve and Brother Mark for being with us. Brother Bobby will be back for the next program, having some time off. But our telephone number, 521-8383. If you do want to join us, you have just a couple of moments, but I want to use the time. Brother Steve, at the outset, and Mark, at the outset of the program, you had expressed support for a revised work program, 4x10. Is that correct? 4 days?
Sure.
What shift?
Sure. So when intern Chief Vanek was leading the department while the chief search was still ongoing, there was a collaboration between the fourth floor and the union. We were asked, intern Chief Vanek had asked us, well, how do you think we could make the staffing a little bit better? And the union's position was, let's go with the 312. 312. Sorry. 312. No problem. Okay. It's been being done now in District 5 and District 4, and Chief Joe now at the helm. He's having a chance to see how that's being implemented. I think the cops up there have been doing that now for 3, 4, 5 months already. Because I know it was a 3-month pilot. Then when Chief Joe took the helm, it got extended. So him and his team are going to need to make a decision, hopefully soon. Just because if it rolls out in the new year, we definitely want to give cops and patrol a heads up that it's coming. We had heard that maybe they would make the announcement maybe November. Don't quote me on that, but it's the 312, and
Mark, what do you think of the schedule?
Well, I've worked it, and I worked both shifts from 6 to 6 and 9 to 9. It's good. You got a lot of time off, but it's tiring, man. So, but the rank and file seem to like it. And to me, it's if you got a happy officer, good, go for it, right? But
Yeah, I know from the community's perspective, obviously, officer morale and whether or not officers like it, that's important. But I think if the administration chooses to adopt this, they're not just considering officer morale and officers like it. I think, is there a cost savings? Does it benefit the department financially to make this decision? That's probably the number one reason why it would get implemented. For example, fuel costs. Could the department save money on fuel? And we're talking fuel costs. We're probably talking a couple $1,000,000.
I would hope it'd be the other way around. That
Well,
it's staff and being able to.
And that's wonderful and that's great. And it should be like that. That should absolutely be part of the conversation. But at the end of the day, Rick, it's does the 312 benefit the officer, but also is it fine? How's this? HPD is not going to do the 312 if it costs more money. That's a fact. It's not going to happen. If money can be saved and there can be things done more efficiently, then that's why it's going to be implemented.
Yeah. Is it advantageous to the department? That's number one they're going to look at.
Okay.
Right. But I know when we had the 312, they did use it as a recruiting tool. They did use it.
I was in Chicago at the time. I was recruited on the 312, and then halfway through recruit school, surprise, it became the 5.9.
Oops.
Oops. Yeah, they pulled it.
Yeah.
Uniforms and gear. There was a request for upgrades. Has there been any movement?
Straight answer, I would say no.
Okay.
And that's not to be insulting. That's just a straight answer. No. There's ongoing testing. I know officers in the field, at least here in Honolulu, have some different brands that they're wearing. I would say, though, to give complete transparency to this, officers over the last 8 years have been wearing different uniforms. The union's position on this is we would hope that Chief Joe and his new administration act quickly and make decisive decisions regarding the uniforms at least being worn by the Honolulu PD officers.
Got to take a quick call. If you have headphones, or I can just quiet the studio to do so. And boy, with only 3 minutes left, Bob out in Mililani. Bob, thank you for the call and good morning.
Good morning, Rick. Good morning, officers. I'll be real quick with this. My son is an officer with District 5. He's been in about 7 years. You were speaking about the size of the classes. And I saw the news last week where the classes are really small. My son came in a class initially with 54 recruits, and they finished off with 47. Are they ever going to get back to that? That's my question. These classes aren't going to...
Yes. Thank you, Bob, for your question. I want to make sure we have time for a response. Gentlemen?
Yeah, we were talking briefly off the air, right? When I came in, a class of 61, we graduated 33. Steve, basically...
we started in the 80s. Right? We graduated low 20s.
So
80s to
correct.
Low 20s.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, I think the theory with the department is smaller class, they'll retain more because they're not going to have the attrition in the recruit school. But I don't know. We'll see. It's something they're trying out. Hopefully it works.
Is there a vetting process that has been intensified over the years? Or
straight talk, Bob, thanks for your participation. Appreciate your call in. People are not coming to this profession like they used to 17 years ago, 30. We're not getting the applicant pool that we used to. And I think that's a big challenge.
Yeah, understand. We have just about a minute left. To wrap it up, Brother Mark, final thoughts for today.
So Wednesday would have been the 41st birthday of Tiffany Enriquez, who passed away in that Diamond Head shooting. So just want to remember her.
Amen. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Brother Steve?
Yeah. Rick, just again, appreciate the opportunity that we can come and interact with the community and have this fellowship over the airways to just kind of talk about top of mind issues from kind of a cop perspective, a police union perspective. And I always say this, we appreciate being here quite a bit.
No, it is a pleasure. And I can't thank you enough. Mark, gosh, thank you for remembering. Thank you.
Yeah, Tiff and KK worked for me for a while, and that was a hard one for me.
Yeah.
And all of us, a lot of people.
You bet. On that note, we wish Bobby all the best. I hope he didn't fall off the Triple E ticket ride, Pirates of the Caribbean. But the bottom line, well-deserved time off. Brother Steve, Brother Mark, thanks as always.
Thanks for having us.